Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
So in this moment, we're going to be presenting a presentation with the title of Phenomenology of Senior High School Mathematics Learning on Relation and Function, an innovative approach based on integrated concept. So this is actually a work of a team, and here is the list of author. The first author is Rohmanto Marhendra Yudha, that's me. The second author is Wahyudi, S.Si, M.Pd. The third author is Dr. Arta Ekayanti, M.Sc. The fourth author is Dwi Avita Nurhidayah, M.Pd. The fifth author is Dr. Jumadi, M.Pd. The sixth author is Dr. Sumaji, M.Pd. The seventh author is Uki Suhendar, M.Pd. The eighth author is Dr. Elok, Putri Nimasari, M.Pd. And the last author is Erika Santi, M.Sc. Next to the second slide. Next slide, please. So here is the general outlines of this presentation. So the first part of the presentation, we're going to talk about the background research. That includes the general overview and the problem identifications of the research itself. The second part of this presentation, we're going to talk about the research methodology. What is the method that are being used in these presentations or on this research? So the third part of the presentation, we're going to talk about the research results, what we found in the research itself. And lastly, we're going to conclude everything inside these presentations. Next slide, please. So here's the background research. So general overview of the research subjects. So we need to look at what is the generic conditions or general descriptions of the research subjects, especially in schools. So here is the general description of the populations. We can say that the populations, which is actually the school, is quite diverse, both intellectually. So we can see there's some distributions of intellectual ability, both intellectually and socioeconomically. So that's a good thing because we can pull out many samples based on their individual variations. So here's the general description of the participant, quite diverse from their learning ability. That's good as well, because we can pull out certain characteristics on that sample. And the general descriptions of the learning perspective and experience. And the interesting part was many of them are still comfortable with old method, which is actually based on the behaviorism method, which is a reward and punishment. So based on this general description, we can identify two things. We can define what their learning style is and their learning problem is. Next slide. So the research methodology is a phenomenological research. So there are two methods that are used in this research, both overt, which is direct data gaining, which is actually an interview, and covert, so indirect, which is observations and elicitation methods are applied in this research. And for the sampling method, we're using purposive sampling based on the underlying academic ability and learning style. So we pull out certain characteristics based on this population. So practically, we took 4, informant A, B, and C. Of course, we scrapped out all of their name because of privacy. And the choice of informants A, B, C is based on their underlying ability that we get from the general description, which is actually the diversity of the intellectual ability and learning style. And for the data analysis, we're using Miles and Huberman method. And for data validity is ensured by triangulation. So the way it works is like we're trying to match the data from the informant to the teacher. So there are 4 informants there, A, B, C, and D. A, B, C is the students. The D is the teacher that teach the class. So if we're trying to match the data from from the student to the teacher, if we see some similarities between them, therefore we can conclude that the data is roughly valid. And there are two themes only in this research, which is participant and meaningful learning. We're not talking about anything else other than these two themes. Next slide. So here's the result. So we take the entire population, which is the entire school. We take one class, specifically class 11, IPA, which means the natural science. And we take the population inside that class. Using purposive sampling, we took 4 informant here. So we take A, B, C. So here, A, B, C stands for the first informant, the second, and the third informant. All of this informant is students, are students, okay? And D, basically a teacher that teach in the class that has some experience teaching inside that class. Next slide. So here's what we found in the during our research. So there are two teams in this case. So the meaning of learning mathematics for students, there are several categories here. The first category is the student levels of self-confidence. What we found as students have a feeling of happiness and confidence when they succeed in understanding the material and answering the questions. So we do see that there's some certain level of self-confidence under certain circumstances. That circumstances we're going to talk about in the next category. The second is the level of fear and doubt in material comprehension. What we found is students feel hesitant to answer due to fear of being wrong. Students also choose to remain silent when they do not understand the teacher's explanation rather than asking questions. So the circumstances here that they are they're afraid of being wrong. So by pushing that it's okay to be wrong, it's inside the class, not reality, that can boost their level of self-confidence. So the second theme is the students' participation in class. So the first category is emotional closeness with the teacher. What we found is students feel noticed and valued if they have a close and good relationship with the teacher. So here is by managing the relationship, the close relationship, the intimate relationship between students and teacher, we can boost their learning participations that directly influence their learning mathematics, their meaning of learning mathematics. The second is the level of courage in Q&A. So their level of braveness in asking or answering questions. So what we found is the student will be more active if they understand the material. Additionally, students are willing to ask questions if the teacher is open and does not get angry. That's also an interesting finding because if they can manage their emotional state, it can boost their level of courage in asking or answering questions, or even, or in general, we can say their level of responding certain stimuli. And the second, the next category is emotional and psychological barriers. So what we found is the fear of teachers' reaction makes the student reluctant to ask questions. Feeling of embarrassment or fear of being wrong inhibit participation. So again, by suppressing the state of being wrong, the suppressing of the state of being wrong, we can boost their students' participation in class. And the last category is students' participation in general. What we found is the teacher uses direct calling so that the student perform in their participation. So here's what we found in this. Next slide, please. So if we try to conclude everything in that table, here's the key points. The first, there is a positive emotion here, the success in understanding the material and answering question is the main source of feeling of happiness and confidence in students. Second, the main barrier in both students learning meaning of learning and what participations is fear of being wrong and fear of teachers' reaction, such as getting angry or not being open, are major inhibitor of active participations, like leading students to choose silent rather than asking questions or answering. The third key point is the teacher's role. A good emotional connection with the teacher makes the student feel valued. The teacher, openness, and non-anger are key to student courage in asking questions. And last key points is the participation strategy. So we can make a certain strategy to counteract with that weakness. So the teachers sometimes have to use direct calling or nomination to elicit participation, which might indicate the voluntary participation is still low. Next slide, please. So here's the evidence that when we try to look at the data itself. So here, interview and observation result reveal varying student outcome based on their comprehensions of the material. Students who successfully grasp and solve problems related to relation and function report satisfaction, happiness, and confidence, indicating that the successful understanding creates a positive meaning of learning. Here's the data from Informant B. Sometimes math is fun if we understand it. So if I work on a problem that I understand, I feel satisfied because I feel succeed. So it means that they do have certain types of enjoyment under the condition that they did understand in the mathematics itself. So they're actually enjoying mathematics under the circumstances that they know what they're really doing it. So in contrast, students struggling with the same material show fear, doubt, and passivity. They are reluctant to ask questions and unsure of their answers. Here's the data from Informant C. Informant C stated, I never ask questions because I'm afraid that the teacher will get angry, so I feel awkward and uncomfortable. This is a really significant finding because the teacher's role is really significant here, especially his or her emotional state. Because if they get angry, the student will get will be afraid to ask question or even responding to question. So this difficulty leads to low confidence and a sense of pressure, forming a negative meaning of learning. So in conclusion, the meaning of learning is strongly linked to students' emotional state and their level of material comprehension. So here's the conclusion. So student participations in learning process is highly influenced by the emotional climate within the classroom. A teacher who is open, non-pressuring, and capable of creating a safe space for a student can encourage the emergence of courage to ask questions and participate actively in discussion. Through a phenomenological research, this research revealed that mathematics instruction should not only focus on the cognitive aspects, but must also consider the emotional and social experiences of the student. Therefore, the teacher are expected to be able to create a learning environment that is not only effective in enhancing academic abilities, but is also personally meaningful and humanistic for the students. So here is the most significant finding here. And thank you very much for having me and having us in this presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.